Hey, welcome to Streaming Bootcamp, your best place to go to learn more about streaming. And this is our meeting today. And it's we come to you every month, once a month on the first Wednesday. Of course, this is a Thursday. I know that. I had a speaking engagement last night, so I had to move it off one day. But every first Wednesday of the month, going back to it on December the 4th, we'll have our next episode. So be sure to tune in for that one. But today we're going to continue on with our journey about some streaming information. So we've covered some really good topics the last two. This is our third topic on our boot camp. And this time we're going to talk about a little bit about lighting and framing, especially necessary when I'm doing these things at night, because you have to have lighting or it would look terrible. Probably wouldn't see me at all. So let me go ahead and switch over here to my setup that I'm going to need. There we go, like that. And bring up my slides. And there we go. So yes, hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about the two critical aspects of producing a podcast with video: framing and lighting. So both play a vital role in making sure that your audience sees you with the best light, literally and figuratively. Now, whether you're a solo podcaster or part of a team, using the right techniques can really elevate your production quality significantly. Framing is all about positioning yourself and other elements in your shot to make it aesthetically pleasing and engaging. A well-framed shot draws attention to the speaker while avoiding unnecessary distractions. By using things like the rule of thirds and making sure your eyes are at the correct level with the camera, you can create a more natural, comfortable visual experience. We're going to go over some of that stuff with you soon. So the rule of thirds, if you haven't heard of it, if you're involved in photography, you might have heard of it, but the rule of thirds is a powerful tool in video production. By dividing your frame into 3 vertical and 3 horizontal lines, you get 9 segments. Positioning yourself where the lines intersect rather than in the center creates a more dynamic, professional look. Of course, we're going for professional. It helps to avoid dead center framing, which can look too rigid or unnatural. So this is what the grid looks like. This is a one of thirds, and you can see I circled the intersections, and that's where they're talking about. So if you're going to position somebody, you don't want them in that center square. You want to position them off to one of those circle areas, such as this person right here. So we can see that's utilizing the third. So we have her off to the side, and let's put a full background behind her, and you can kind of see it's a little subtle, more subtle look, not quite as in your face. Now, sometimes you want a more in the face look, but generally, if you're trying to shoot somebody like standing up or talking, it's better to have them off to the center in the thirds. Now, this is what it would look like if you weren't doing that. Somebody was right in the middle. So this is more in your face, more, kind of colder look to it. Even when we throw the background behind it, still it has that same effect. I think it's pretty clear to see. And we'll even put the two next to each other and you can get even better idea what that looks like. So definitely she looks more soft, more inviting, somebody that you might want to walk up and talk to. The other guy looks like he's going to beat you up. So keep that in mind. That's what the meant by the setting up, by focusing in and positioning yourself in one of those thirds. Now, the other thing about framing is something we call eye level framing. So when framing yourself, it's always want to make sure your camera is at eye level. This allows you to connect directly with your audience as if you're speaking face to face. And so you want to have that feeling. So hopefully you feel like I'm talking right to you. A higher angle sometimes makes it feel condescending, while a lower one may come off as submissive or awkward. So I'm going to show you a little bit about how my setup works, but I like to go with a slightly elevated camera so that I'm looking a little bit up. And the reason for that is I've got double chins here. And if you have the camera down here, sometimes you'll see that. And some people are really sensitive to showing off that double chin look. And they like, you got to look up a little bit. You're going to tighten up your chin. Little tips here to look your best. So here's a picture of my setup, and you can kind of see the camera up there in the center. It's above the screen. The screen is the highest part in my whole setup, so it does make me look up a little bit. Now I have a monitor behind it. It's not turned on, so it just looks black right now. But that monitor is also what I'm looking at too, so I can kind of see what the actual show is looking like by looking at the monitor behind the camera. It's kind of a poor man's telestrator where the actually has like a mirror that don't see the camera at all, but you see your picture, your framing. But this just put a monitor behind it and it works just fine. And so there's another picture of that camera lens right up there. So I'm going to do a little demo here. Let me just switch over to the full screen here, and kind of I don't know if that two person thing looks really good, but let's just kind of show you a little bit. So if I'm looking where my camera's at, it kind of looks good. Now, if I'm looking down more like where I would be reading a lens, you can kind of see where I get that more of a double chin look. And then of course, if it's up too high, you get this look, and that's not good at all. It kind of like, looks like you're trying to, well, of course I have multifocal lenses. So sometimes you see people that look like this because they're trying to read stuff. So you want to keep it where you can read. Now, interestingly, I do have some notes that I put down just to kind of remind me what I'm doing. And I try to keep those notes just a little bit lower so that I can just glance down at them without doing one of these and trying to see through the bottom of the lenses. Little tricks. All right, let's bring this back in here. So eye level is important. We'll show you a little bit more about that with the headroom and lead room. So headroom and lead room are two terms you should be familiar with. Headroom is the space between the top of your head and the top of the very top of the frame. So this little space in here. Too much and you look like you're sinking. Too little and you might appear cut off. Headroom or lead room, on the other hand, is the space in front of where you're looking at or speaking. For example, if you're not facing the camera, you should give yourself a little more extra lead room. So if you're doing one of these side shots, you can kind of, well, let me bring this in here where you get the full screen. So if you're doing like a side shot, kind of looks a little better if you're back further than as if you're up here and you're doing a side shot. It's not as quite as good. But of course, if you're not doing a side shot, then you should probably be over here. Now, the other thing is headroom. Again, you don't want to be cutting yourself off like this, and you don't want to be shrunk down here. Nothing looks worse than having way too much headroom. It's really a bad look. I can actually do a demo because I've got the two pictures here. So I've got two different cameras. So as you can see, that's too much headroom. So I'm correcting it with the one over on the left, the smaller one. And then, of course, not enough headroom. Doesn't look too good. Now, lead room, again, I can control a little bit about how close and how far it is. So you want to have kind of this sweet spot. Oops, I got to switch over to my slides here again. Now, this is what we call a framer. So you can actually put this, it's superimposed on my other monitor. So I have a monitor that I'm showing this stuff on. I've got a monitor up here that's by the camera so I can see what the actual live feed is. But off to the side here is a third monitor. And that's actually my monitor that works the ATEM. And I'll be talking about the ATEM in another episode coming up soon. But that gives me the view that you're seeing here where I can put a framer in to show where my head should be. So I didn't come up with this frame. I found it from somebody who does this work a lot, and they call it the Fenwick framer. So his name happens to be Fenwick. It controls things like headroom. As you can see, that shows how the head should be up there. Now, again, we're not using it does have the markings for the figures of threes, the breaking it up into thirds. But typically, if you're doing like an interview type thing situation, it's good to have your head in the center of the screen, kind of like a newscaster does. So here's a picture with the guy using that framer, and you can see the top line is your eye line. And that's what you want to make sure that you try to keep the eyes up about that level. So you also want to, this guy doesn't have enough headroom there. Now here we have the lead room, and we can see that he's way back. So he's not filling up the space there. So he's got too much lead room. So you want to make sure that you fill that space up by getting in closer or focusing closer. And as I was showing you with the other camera, I'm using the camera that was on my computer. If you have something like a laptop, it's ideal because you can tip that frame up or down and it'll correct where the headroom is going to fall. So that's another thing. I do a lot of these with people that are not really used to talking online. And we do what we call hair and makeup at the beginning of the show, where people, whoever is my speaker, is my guest speaker on one of my other podcasts, will get on and I'll kind of look at them and I'll say, no, you got too much headroom. And if they've got a computer that is, or a camera that's not on a stand or adjustable for height, what I'll do is I'll tell them to raise the laptop up, put books underneath it to get height on it so that you get the right look. Little tricks. Now let's talk about lighting. So I kind of mentioned in one of my earlier videos that I always say lights, camera, action, lights first for a reason, because it's important. You're not going to be able to see anything if you don't have the lights on. So let's talk about what's good for lighting. Even with a great camera, poor lighting can ruin the podcast visual quality. Proper lighting not only helps illuminate your face, but also sets the tone and mood of your recording. And I'm going to cover some of the differences between natural and artificial lighting and how to avoid shadows that can distract viewers. So, what are the types of lights? There's basically three main lights that we use: the key light, the fill light, and the backlight. I happen to have all three of those on. I normally do these shows, except for this show, I do my other shows all in the morning, and I have a lot of natural lighting. And I'll talk about the difference between the two shortly. But the key light is your primary light source and should be positioned at an angle in front of you. This light softens any harsh shadows created by the key light. The fill light, whoops, I got this wrong. So the key light's your primary source and should be positioned at an angle in front of you. The fill light, which is the other one off to the other side. So I've got my key lights here, my fill lights over there. Softens any harsh shadows created by the key light. So, and then lastly, above me, I have a backlight, which helps to create depth by separating you from the background. Now that one I can demonstrate turning off. So you can kind of see how that affects the back. I kind of blend in a little bit more to my background. Let me bring it up to full frame here so you can see that. So I'm not quite as visible from the tune. I can turn this one back on. And now, so the backlight helps to separate me out a little bit more. It also does. I have two lights. Actually, I have one that's hitting the backdrop, which is actually why it lights that up and gives me a little separation from my backdrop. And then another one is actually on my hair, which is called, we call it a hair light for no other reason, but it helps to also separate you from your background. And I think it casts a nicer shadow on your hair. Of course, mine's so gray it shines off of it. Now we're talking a little bit about natural lighting versus artificial lighting. So of course it's dark right now, so I have to use artificial lighting, but natural lighting can be fantastic, especially if you have access to a window. I got windows all around me, so that's not a problem. The best time to utilize natural lights are in the morning or late afternoon, what's known as the golden hour. Be cautious though about using direct sunlight. It can also cast hard, unflattering shadows. Instead, position yourself so that a soft, diffuse light is coming in at an angle. So you don't want direct on because you're going to get more that kind of harshness to it. But natural lighting is going to give you the best coloring. It's just, there's no other better thing than using natural lighting. Now, it does pose some of its own problems in that it can be too bright. So sometimes you have to watch things like that. And I've also got shades to kind of diffuse the light. Now, this is a mistake I've had a lot of people that come on my shows make. It's called backlighting. If you've got a light behind you, that's what you're going to look like you see in this. Oh, I guess I forgot to throw my slide back up here. So sorry about that. So if you've got backlighting, this is what it's going to look like. You got that, you can't see the person. So you've got to be really careful. A lot of people make that mistake. They got a window in their room, but it's behind them. You want the window in front of you. You need the light to be casted onto you, not behind you. Otherwise, it's just going to make you just be a black blob on your screen. So keep that in mind. The other thing, and of course, what we're doing today is using artificial light. It's a game changer if you're podcasting indoors or at night, or sometimes I've utilized the artificial light. I mean, the natural light all the time for my shows, but every now and then Mother Nature doesn't cooperate, and we'll get a rainstorm and it'll be dark. So I've got these lights always ready to be pushed on at push a button to get them to come back on. And, ring lights are great for giving you an even lighting, especially if you want to highlight your face. Soft boxes diffuse light, reducing harsh shadows and give a professional feel. And LED panels are versatile, can be used to adjust and fit your lighting needs. And we're going to talk about all of those. So this is what a ring light looks like. Most of the time, the idea is to have the camera behind that circle of the ring so that you're getting illuminated completely around your face, and your camera's not getting casting any shadows on it. This one shows over a laptop, and the camera's just right below it. Now, ring lights are nice. I don't use them because I wear glasses. And one of the issues if you wear glasses is you're going to get this effect. So you'll see them in the glasses. Sometimes you can tip, differently to try to get and eliminate that, but then you've always got to make sure your head's tipped to eliminate that. I always say, unless you wear contacts, you probably shouldn't use a ring light, or if you don't wear glasses at all, I guess. Now, what's better is something called the soft box. These are pictures from Amazon, so it gives you kind of a pricing cost what they are. But these are portable. They collapse down. They're nice and small. And these are made out of a canvas type material. And what they do is they just basically diffuse the light so that you get this soft glow coming in. Most of them are run off LEDs. Some of them use fluorescent lighting. Some you can tone the colors too, or change the colors. So you can kind of see that shows that. $70 for two of them. Again, you need a key light and a fill light, so you need two. So they should be off to an angle each side for the best look. But that's not a bad price. Now, what I'm using, I can show you what I use in a little bit. I also found this one for $39. I really like this. Probably would consider using this if I was doing this somewhere else. Didn't have my setup that I currently have, but these are nice because they clip to the desk. So you can screw them into your desk or screw them on your desk. And it gives you this nice lighting effect that you get, that you see over here. And again, you got the two lights, $39. That's not a bad price. If money's no object, you really want to know what's the best light to get. This thing called a Nan light, Pavo tube, is absolutely the best. You can color correct for those. You can, they're those long tubes, and they're LED, so they last forever. And they're going to give you need two of them again, the same way, but they'll give you a very nice natural looking light. You can adjust how bright they are and how not bright they are. But again, $311, unless you're, been doing a very successful podcast, it's going to take a little while to recoup that cost. So the type of lighting that we're talking about is what we call 3-point lighting. I was kind of explaining that earlier, but it's a classic lighting setup, very easy to implement. You have your key light in front, angled to one side. The fill light should be placed on the opposite side to eliminate any harsh shadows. The difference between the fill and the key, because they're both, one's on each side, is I normally think of the key light as the one I have a little bit closer, and the fill light's a little bit further away. So they cast, I guess, a little different shadow. But anyway, you then need that backlighting too to add depth, separating you from the background for a more dynamic shot. So this is what it looks like, as you can kind of see here. The yellow dot is you, and the camera's in front on the bottom there. You can see. So the key light and the fill light are both off to the sides on angles, and then the backlight can be pretty much anywhere behind you. I like to keep my backlight, I said, above me a little bit higher, just because I got a studio where I can hang lights, so it makes it work out pretty well for that. So again, this is just another example of key lighting on the one side, the fill lighting on the other side. Now, this is what I use. This is my setup, so you can kind of see those for my natural lighting behind you, these shades that come down to diffuse the sun, so I don't get this bright sun blaring in here. But that this is just a regular desk lamp that I use that's got these diffusing filters that you can buy from Amazon, and they're really inexpensive. I got some numbers I'll show you on those. And here's my studios. that you can kind of see all these windows I've got all over the place. But again, I have those things down there. They do two things besides diffusing um, the sunlight. They also help to decrease some of the bounce back from off the windows. They're really actually down right now, not to keep the sun out because of the sound. You can see the one light is the one on your right is slightly closer than the one on the left. That's my key light is on the right. My fill light is on the left. My right and left, so it might be backwards. And then this is the one I use above. It's just I have a fan light up above. It's got 3 different bulbs on it. One faces the backdrop behind me. The other one faces my hair. And the third one, I unscrew the bulb because it doesn't go anywhere. And you can see I cover those with this diffuser. This is the diffuser I was talking about. $12. You can get it from Amazon, and they fit right over these. So if you've got some of these lamps at your house, why spend a fortune? It really provides great, I think, gives me really good color and, good lighting, and it's super inexpensive. And heck, I already had these lights anyway, just laying around. So avoid common lighting mistakes. Overexposure can cause your face to look washed out, while underexposure can make it hard for your audience to see you clearly. Also, uneven lighting, where one side of your face is too bright and the other is in a shadow, can be distracting. So it's really important. Most of the cameras are going to have some sensitivity where they can correct for poor lighting situations. But the thing is, if it's the way a camera works, if it's not getting enough light, it'll become grainier. It tries to open things up to allow more processing, and it just gets the color, or it's not as sharp of an image. It gets grainier. So then by having actually some other kind of lighting there, you're going to get a much better looking picture. This is kind of a quick checklist you can use to keep in mind when you're setting up for your podcast. It's the framing and lighting checklist. So what you want to do is always frame yourself using the rule of thirds, or as I showed with the Fenwick framer, keeping yourself, if you kind of have more of like a news type podcast, then you want to be more head on. Keep your camera at eye level, showed you how important that was. And check that you have balanced headroom and lead room. You don't want too much or too little room above your head. And you don't want to be too close or too far away from your camera. For lighting, use either natural or artificial light, and ensure that you are lit without any harsh shadows or overexposure. Now, here's the best tip I can give you. This is absolutely the best tip. Oh, by the way, if anybody is watching this live and want to use any Q&As, you have any questions, you can go and put those into the comments. I'll be glad to answer those. But I want to just kind of switch over here to my other camera look. And I just have to go over here so I can get the full frame. So one of the things that I always tell people to do is practice. Practice makes perfect. So the particular program that I have allows me to record what I'm doing. So even though this is going out live, you can make recordings that don't go out live. And I do that. I'll test out how the lighting looks by running and doing some recordings. You can also listen to how your sound is. How do you look? How's your framing? Are you looking at the camera, or you're one of these guys who's always looking away or looking down, or, watch yourself. If you don't watch what you're doing, you're never going to get better. So it's really the best thing is to practice. Do some of these things without putting them out there first and practice and see how it looks. And then if you're happy with how things are going, now's this time to go and put it out there. I can tell you, and I've done probably close to 200 episodes now between my other 2 podcasts. And I still watch every episode afterwards just to kind of critique myself on how I'm doing. I think it's really important to make sure that you're putting out a good, high quality show. So I hope this is informative. I hope you really like Bootcamp. Let me know. Put it in the comments if you're enjoying it. I'm going to keep going with it every month, just kind of go through some of these tips. Next month, it's going to be talking about StreamYard. StreamYard is the software that I use to stream directly from your computer. So it's there's some stuff in the background that I use also, which I'll talk about, called the switcher, which is how I can switch from cameras, how I was able to go back and forth to that other look that you saw. But the StreamYard is really your production. It's how I get to broadcast to multiple stations and things like that. So December the 4th, we're gonna try to show you my StreamYard screen so you can see what it looks like from my view and kind of see what's involved in it. And if hey, if it's something you think you want to get involved and work with it, I'll even have a code you can use to maybe get a discount from StreamYard. So we'll see. But otherwise, enjoy the rest of your night and good to see everybody. See you next month.